My fiancé was secretly sleeping with our wedding planner. I found out 3 months before the big day.
If you had told me 3 years ago that my life would implode because of peonies, catering menus, and a woman with a clipboard, I would have laughed. Weddings were never my obsession. I wasn't the little girl who dreamed of her dress, circled dates on the calendar, or curated secret Pinterest boards, but love does strange things. Daniel and I met at a mutual friend's barbecue. It was one of those muggy summer nights where the beer was lukewarm, the hot dogs overcooked, and the mosquitoes relentless. He showed up in a wrinkled button-down, made a self-deprecating joke about being allergic to grass, and somehow managed to charm me before the night ended. Our relationship was easy. After years of dating disasters, of men who ghosted or strung me along, Daniel was steady, attentive, the kind of man who texted "good morning" without fail, who showed up with soup when I was sick, who remembered little details like my favorite tea or that I hated cilantro. 3 years later, he proposed in Paris. Yes, Paris. Cliché, I know. But when you're standing under the Eiffel Tower at dusk with a man on one knee holding a ring, cliché turns into magic. Tourists clapped. I cried. He looked at me like I was the only person in the world. We came home engaged, glowing, drunk on champagne and future plans. My mom cried when I showed her the ring. My dad hugged Daniel like he'd already been his son for years. His parents beamed. My friends squealed. For months, everything in my life felt exactly where it was supposed to be. We dove headfirst into wedding planning. I thought I'd hate it. The logistics, the decisions, the stress. But Daniel was enthusiastic. "Let's make it the party of the century," he said, grinning, sketching out dumb doodles of dance floors on napkins. The first big decision was hiring a planner. Everyone told us it was worth it. Someone to wrangle the vendors, keep timelines, soothe family tensions. Enter Amanda. Amanda was polished. Late 30s, sharp suits, a clipboard practically glued to her hand. She had the kind of presence that made florists scramble and caterers nod obediently. She was confident, smooth, with that fake but charming smile that wedding vendors seem to perfect. She was also magnetic. I noticed right away how people lit up around her. Brides, grooms, parents, even grumpy DJs. She could talk anyone into anything. "Worth every penny," Daniel said after our first meeting. He wasn't wrong. Amanda whipped my vague, elegant but fun dream into vision boards and timelines. She had opinions on flowers, lighting, even napkin folds. She charmed my mom, joked with my bridesmaids, negotiated with venues. I trusted her. More than that, I liked her. She seemed like the ally I didn't know I needed. If only I'd realized what kind of ally she'd turn out to be. If I rewind far enough, I can pinpoint the first time something felt off. It was about 2 months into planning. Amanda had just locked down our venue. This stunning, restored barn with vaulted ceilings strung with fairy lights and acres of fields rolling into the horizon. I remember being genuinely excited that night, showing my mom the photos Amanda had sent over. Daniel, though, wasn't looking at the photos. He was looking at Amanda's texts. I brushed it off then. He's just enthusiastic, I told myself. He's finally taking ownership in this process. After all, don't women always complain about grooms who check out of planning? Here was mine, texting the planner about catering options at 11 p.m. Shouldn't I be grateful? But it didn't feel like gratitude. It felt like the shift of something I couldn't name. The first few planner meetings were standard. Amanda would pull out her iPad, scroll through options, and Daniel and I would debate politely about the merits of round versus rectangular tables. But as the weeks went by, I noticed Amanda and Daniel started slipping into their own rhythm. They'd exchange quick jokes I didn't understand. Their heads would bend close over her tablet, their shoulders brushing. She'd roll her eyes at something I said, and he'd laugh. Not at me exactly, but with her, like they were sharing a secret. And me? I laughed along too, because what else was I supposed to do? Call out the woman I was paying thousands of dollars over? Question my fiancé because he seemed comfortable? There were moments, though, that stuck like thorns. The time Amanda casually said, "Daniel has such great taste," when he picked a cake flavor, and he gave her a grin like a schoolboy soaking in praise. The time he stayed after a venue walkthrough to help Amanda carry stuff to her car. I waited inside for 20 minutes before realizing I could see them through the glass doors, standing in the parking lot, talking animatedly, too close, their laughter carrying. The time his phone buzzed over dinner and he glanced down, smirked, then flipped it face down when I asked who it was. "Just Amanda, she's asking about the seating chart," he said too quickly.
I wanted to tell myself it was harmless, that I was being paranoid, even jealous. But here's the thing. Daniel had never cared this much about logistics before. This was a man who couldn't be bothered to RSVP to his own cousin's wedding on time, and suddenly he was debating the nuances of flower arrangements at midnight? Still, I buried the knot in my stomach. I told myself stress was making me see shadows, that Amanda was just doing her job, that Daniel was being involved because he loved me and wanted this day to be perfect. I swallowed the unease. But unease has a way of festering. The night that stands out most was the cake tasting. Amanda joined us, even though she technically didn't need to. I remember sitting there with frosting samples, watching her feed Daniel a bite of lemon sponge cake, laughing when he made a face, wiping a crumb from his lip with her thumb like it was the most natural thing in the world. My stomach flipped. I joked, lightly, because what else was I supposed to do? Call out the woman I was paying thousands of dollars over? Question my fiancé because he seemed comfortable? She flashed me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, we're just having fun." And Daniel, he laughed, like it was no big deal. But it didn't feel like fun to me. It felt like the earth tilting slightly, a crack forming beneath my feet. The months blurred together. Dress fittings, floral appointments, guest list drama. And through it all, Amanda and Daniel grew closer, weaving their own invisible thread between them. I noticed, but I didn't act, because how do you accuse someone of something when you have nothing but vibes and crumbs of suspicion? How do you tell your fiancé you're worried he likes the planner too much without sounding like a jealous, insecure mess? You don't. You smile, you nod, you swallow your doubt. But the thing about cracks is that if you don't patch them, they don't just stay cracks. They split wide open. The night everything came crashing down started like any other. Daniel said he was going to the gym after work, which wasn't unusual. He'd picked up this new fitness kick a few months back, another sudden burst of enthusiasm that I told myself was healthy, admirable even. He'd come home sweaty, shower, eat a late dinner, and crash in front of the TV. Routine, predictable, safe. But that night, he left his gym bag in the hallway when he came in, shoes still clean, not a hint of sweat on his shirt. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I asked about his workout, and he launched into some vague rambling about cardio and arms. My stomach twisted. Later, when he went to shower, his phone buzzed on the counter. Normally, I'd ignore it. I wasn't the type to snoop. But the knot in my gut had been growing for weeks, whispering, gnawing. This time, I picked it up. And there it was, a preview of a message from Amanda. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. When's the next time we can sneak away?" My blood froze. I opened the thread, and what I saw made my heart plummet straight through the floor. Dozens of messages, weeks of them, flirty jokes, plans for extra meetings, complaints about having to play the role around me, details that made me feel physically ill. That walkthrough was torture. All I wanted to do was pull you into a side room. Can't believe she bought the story about the catering console, haha. You in a suit at our venue? Unfair. Photos. Not explicit, but damning. Him and Amanda, glasses of wine in hand, a hotel mirror selfie, a close-up of their hands tangled together. I dropped the phone like it burned me. My chest was tight, breath shallow, tears stinging before I even realized I was crying. My fiancé, the man I trusted, the woman I paid to orchestrate my happiest day, together, laughing about how easy it was to deceive me. By the time he came out of the shower, towel around his waist, humming like nothing had changed, I was sitting on the bed with his phone in my lap, tears running down my face. He froze when he saw me, his face drained of color, his eyes darting to the phone. "What is this?" My voice cracked. It wasn't even anger yet, just disbelief. He stammered, reaching for the usual script. "It's not what it looks like. She's being inappropriate. I'll end it." But I had already read too much. I knew. I pressed, and the denials crumbled. Slowly, haltingly, he admitted. Yes, it had been going on for a couple months. It started with late planning sessions. They'd had wine and they'd vented. One thing led to another. Every word was a knife. I didn't scream, I didn't throw things, I just stared at him, hollow, while the dream life I thought I'd built collapsed, piece by piece. Finally, I told him to pack a bag. Go stay with his brother, get out. He begged, pleaded, swore it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. But the words "last night was incredible" echoed in my head. He left that night with a duffel bag. The apartment felt cavernous after the door clicked shut. I sat in silence, the phone still in my hands, staring at the texts until the screen dimmed. The next morning, I called Amanda. She picked up on the second ring, her voice calm, too calm. I told her I knew, that I had seen the messages. And do you know what she said? She didn't apologize. She didn't deny it. She just said, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Daniel and I, we didn't plan for it, but feelings got involved. You're a wonderful woman, but maybe you two aren't meant to be." Like she was doing me a favor. Like I should thank her for stealing my fiancé and detonating my wedding. That was the moment the rage finally hit. Hot, blinding. I hung up without another word. And then I collapsed. On the floor, in tears, alone. Everything. The ring on my finger, the dress hanging in my mom's closet, the deposits we'd paid, the guests who'd RSVP'd. Everything suddenly felt like a monument to my humiliation. I thought weddings were supposed to be fairy tales. Instead, mine had turned into a horror story, written in text messages and hotel selfies. The day after I saw the texts, the world felt unreal, like I was moving through a fog. I kept looking at my engagement ring and wondering how something so beautiful could feel like a shackle now. I wanted to rip it off, throw it into traffic, but at the same time, I couldn't stop staring at it. A perfect circle, a promise, now broken. Daniel texted me all morning. "We need to talk. I can explain. Please don't give up on us. It was a mistake." Mistake, that word again and again. As though mistakes happened dozens of times in hotel rooms over glasses of wine, in secret text threads. As though mistakes required laughing about me behind my back. I ignored him until around noon, when he showed up at the apartment anyway. I heard his key in the door and my stomach clenched so hard I nearly vomited. I'd thought I'd changed the locks, but of course I hadn't. Another task I'd shoved aside while drowning in betrayal. He stepped in holding a bouquet of roses like some idiot cliché, his face pinched and desperate. "Please," he said before I could even open my mouth, "please, just hear me out." I should have thrown the flowers back at him, told him to get out. But I stood there, arms crossed, heart hammering, waiting. And he launched into it. "I messed up. I didn't mean for it to happen. Amanda and I, it was just stress, the planning, the pressure. She was there. She understood what we were going through. One thing led to another, but it didn't mean anything." Didn't mean anything, he kept saying it. Like if he said it enough, it would wash away the filth of the text burned into my memory. "Last night was incredible. When can we sneak away?" Didn't mean anything? It meant enough for her to think they had a future. "You expect me to believe this didn't mean anything?" I snapped. My voice was shaking, but not with fear, with fury. "You're sleeping with our wedding planner, the woman we're paying to make our day perfect, the woman who called me sweetheart to my face. You made playlists of songs for her. You sent her selfies from our venue, and you want me to believe it didn't mean anything?" He flinched, clutching the roses like a shield. "I was drunk half the time. I wasn't thinking straight. I love you. I want to marry you. I don't even care about her." A lie. I saw it in his eyes. That flicker of panic, not regret. "You don't care about her?" I said bitterly. "Then why does she think you two are meant to be? Why does she sound so damn confident when she tells me maybe we weren't right together? Because you told her that, didn't you? You made her feel like she was the one." His jaw tightened and he looked away. That silence was louder than any admission. I pressed harder, my anger fueling me. "Do you even realize what you've done? You didn't just cheat, you ruined everything. The money we've spent, the deposits, the guest list, the dress, everything. And you humiliated me. You let her walk into my life, smile at me, hug me, all while knowing she was sleeping with you behind my back." He set the flowers down, finally breaking. "I'll call her right now. I'll end it. Please, just give me a chance to fix this." And for one wild second, a tiny part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to cling to the illusion of the life we'd been building. But then I remembered Amanda's voice on the phone, cool and dismissive. "Maybe you two aren't meant to be." That wasn't a fling. That was emotional intimacy. That was a betrayal so layered I could never peel it back. So I laughed, sharp, humorless. "Fix this? You can't fix this. You blew up our future because you couldn't keep it in your pants. You betrayed me, you betrayed our families, you betrayed everyone who spent months preparing to celebrate us. There's no fixing that." He reached for me then, desperate, and I stepped back so fast I nearly tripped. "Don't touch me," I said. "Pack the rest of your stuff. You're done here." For a moment, he just stood there, staring at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Then his shoulders slumped. He picked up the roses, crumpled them in his hands, and walked to the door. But before he left, he turned back one last time. "You're making a mistake! Don't throw this away!" And then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and I sank onto the couch, shaking so hard I could barely breathe. My wedding was dead. My relationship was dead, all because the two people I trusted most to make my future beautiful had decided to make it ugly together. The silence in the apartment was suffocating. And for the first time since I'd found the texts, I screamed. If discovering the affair had been the knife, the weeks that followed were the slow twisting of it. Canceling a wedding isn't just one phone call, it's 1,000 cuts. It's explaining over and over again that the day people have circled on their calendars for months is no longer happening, and that their reason is uglier than anyone wants to hear. The first call was to the venue. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the contract Amanda herself had negotiated, her neat little signature mocking me from the bottom. My voice cracked as I told the coordinator we wouldn't be moving forward. She tried to be kind, but I could hear the awkward sympathy bleeding through. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart, but you know the deposit is non-refundable." Thousands. Gone. Just like that. The florist was next. Same story. Then the caterer, then the DJ. Every conversation was a new layer of humiliation. Explaining why, choking back tears, hearing that same note of pity. Some didn't even ask. Maybe they already knew. Amanda had her fingerprints on everything, and gossip spreads fast in that world. I cried after every call. Not just for the money, but for the sheer finality. With every cancellation, the dream I'd been building crumbled further. And then came the guests. Dozens of texts, emails, phone calls. Some people were understanding, others wanted details. One cousin had the audacity to ask if we were just postponing until we worked things out, like this was some sitcom misunderstanding that could be smoothed over. My mom made half the calls for me because I couldn't bear it. My dad, well, he reacted like dads do. Furious, protective. He told me he'd always thought Daniel seemed too slick, though, of course, he never mentioned that before. He offered to drive over to Daniel's place with a baseball bat. I told him no, because honestly, the thought of any more drama made me want to crawl into a hole. Friends split into camps. Some rallied around me, wine nights, sleepovers, furious rants about what a walking cliche Amanda was. Others, especially Daniel's longtime friends, went radio silent. A couple even messaged me asking if I was sure I wanted to call it off, that he seemed really sorry. I blocked them. The humiliation was everywhere. At work, coworkers whispered. My boss gave me that sympathetic tilt of the head when I told her I needed a day off to handle personal matters. Even the barista at the coffee shop near our old apartment gave me a look that made me wonder if she knew. And then there was the dress. It hung in my mom's closet, pristine, untouched. I couldn't even look at it. I thought about selling it, donating it, burning it in some cathartic ritual. But every time I pictured letting it go, I froze. It wasn't the dress's fault. It was mine. Mine and yet poisoned. I left it there, in the back of her closet, like a ghost. The money was brutal. Between deposits and non-refundable fees, I lost nearly $10,000. $10,000, gone in the span of a week. Money I could have used for a down payment, for travel, for literally anything but funding the affair that destroyed me. Because every vendor Amanda had charmed, every contract she drafted, every decision she'd nudged us toward, all of it had been tainted by her. The worst moment, though, was the bachelorette party. My maid of honor had already booked a weekend trip. Flights, hotel, everything. She tried to cancel, but half the cost was locked in. So she asked me, did I want to go anyway? I said no at first. The thought of celebrating anything made me nauseous. But the girls convinced me. Let's turn it into a healing trip, they said. Screw him, screw her, let's drink margaritas and remind you that life goes on. And so I went. It should have been fun, and parts of it were. The beach, the laughter, the cheap tequila. But every toast felt hollow. Every laugh carried an undercurrent of pity. I was the girl whose fiancé cheated with the wedding planner. The story was already making the rounds, passed from friend to friend like a scandalous secret. I hated being a spectacle. I hated being a punchline. I hated that even when I was surrounded by friends, I still felt like I was drowning. By the time I got back, I was numb. The calls were mostly made, the cancellations done. Daniel had stopped texting daily, though every so often he'd send a long message begging me to reconsider. I ignored them all. But one night, about a month after the implosion, I saw them. At a restaurant downtown, the one Daniel and I used to go to for anniversaries, Amanda and Daniel seated together at a corner table. She was laughing, her hand on his. He looked happy, not guilty, not conflicted, just happy.
The sight knocked the air out of me. My friend tugged at my arm, whispered that we should leave, but I couldn't move. I stood there, frozen, watching them smile over wine glasses like they hadn't left carnage in their wake. It hit me then. They didn't care. Not about the wreckage, not about me, not about the wedding. They'd found each other in the ashes of my life, and they were fine with it. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The grief didn't vanish, the humiliation didn't magically disappear, but the weight of it loosened. Because if that was the man I almost married, if that was the woman I almost trusted with the most important day of my life, then maybe, just maybe, the universe had done me a favor. A cruel, brutal, humiliating favor, but a favor nonetheless.
The weeks after I saw them together in that restaurant were like living inside a bruise. Everywhere I turned, something pressed against the wound. A commercial for a bridal shop, a coworker asking if I'd set a new date yet, the email reminder still coming in from wedding vendors I hadn't contacted. Each one reopened the ache. But there's only so much bleeding a person can do. Eventually, you start to clot. At first, it was survival. I threw myself into routine. Wake up, coffee, work, home, collapse. I avoided social media like it was radioactive. I couldn't stomach the sight of other people's engagement photos, their countdown posts, their pastel-colored joy. I deleted the wedding Pinterest board I'd spent months on, each click of delete like a tiny funeral. But little by little, I started clawing my way back. Therapy was the first step. My best friend all but dragged me there. The therapist was this calm, gray-haired woman with kind eyes who didn't flinch when I sobbed through the first session. She said something that stuck with me. You lost more than a fiancé. You lost a future you'd built in your head. You're grieving a life that was stolen from you. That reframed everything. I wasn't just angry, I was grieving. Grieving the apartment we'd planned to buy, the kids' names we'd joked about, the honeymoon itinerary, the father-daughter dance I'd pictured since I was little. All gone, not because I wasn't enough, but because he was too weak to keep a promise. Therapy gave me permission to mourn, and then, slowly, to let go. Family was the second anchor. My mom, who drove 3 hours every weekend just to sit with me, my dad, who quietly fixed things around my apartment because he didn't know how to fix me, my brother, who sent me dumb memes at midnight so I'd laugh instead of cry. There was one night when my mom and I sat at her kitchen table with a bottle of wine, the canceled wedding dress hanging upstairs in the closet. I asked her if she thought I'd ever trust someone again. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand, and said, "Not only will you trust again, you'll choose better, because you'll never forget how this feels, and you won't settle for anyone who could make you feel it again." I didn't believe her at the time, but those words planted themselves deep inside me. Friends rallied too, though in messy ways. Some were relentless cheerleaders, texting daily affirmations. Others disappeared, maybe because they didn't know what to say. A few admitted, sheepishly, that they'd always thought Daniel was too good at charming everyone, but they hadn't wanted to rock the boat. I learned who was in my corner, who was just there for the open bar that would have been, and that knowledge, painful as it was, felt like a strange gift. Money was the ugliest reminder. Every time I checked my bank account, I saw the ghost of deposits, thousands lost. The caterer, the photographer, the venue, all because of a wedding that never happened. At first, it made me sick, but eventually I reframed it. Tuition, I called it. The cost of a brutal education. The lesson that no amount of planning or money can buy loyalty. And then came the small victories. The first time I laughed, really laughed, without it being forced. The first time I went a whole day without thinking of Amanda's smug voice in my ear. The first time I opened Spotify and let music fill the apartment again. I even started running. At first, it was just a way to burn off restless energy, but soon it became something else. A way to feel my own strength, my own lungs filling up, my own legs carrying me forward. Each mile was proof. I was still here. I was still moving. Months passed. The raw wound became scar tissue. And then one evening, fate handed me a test. I was leaving a bookstore when I saw them, Daniel and Amanda, walking down the street together, holding hands. They looked comfortable, like a couple who'd been together for years. He was laughing at something she said. She was smiling up at him. For a moment, I froze. The old pain threatened to surge back. But then something strange happened. I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, no jealousy, just a hollow kind of pity, because all I could think was, that's her problem now. He'd already shown what kind of man he was, and if she thought she'd won some great prize, let her find out the hard way. I turned, walked the other direction, and didn't look back. It's been a year now. The dress still hangs in my mom's closet, but I've stopped thinking of it as a ghost, more like an artifact from another life. I'm not dating yet, not seriously, but I smile more, I laugh more, I trust myself more. And when I picture the future now, it isn't a fairy tale wedding curated by someone else. It's me, building a life that doesn't need approval, applause, or a fancy venue. Maybe one day there will be someone new, someone who won't flirt with the planner behind my back, someone who won't laugh at my expense in text messages. Maybe there will even be another wedding, smaller, simpler, real. But until then, I'm okay, because I'd rather stand alone in my own truth than walk down any aisle built on lies.
I found out my partner's big work project was actually an affair with his coworker. Alex and I had been together 5 years, living together for 3. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner and just clicked. He had that easy, affable charm, the kind of guy who remembered people's names and made everyone laugh without trying too hard. I worked in marketing, he worked in tech. Long hours, but good money. From the outside, we looked solid. We had couple photos on vacations, a shared dog named Cooper, inside jokes about bad reality TV, and matching mugs that said his and hers. My family adored him. His friends accepted me instantly. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. That steadiness was why I never questioned him when he started talking about the big project at work. It was early last year. He said his team had landed a high-profile client, and it meant late nights, tight deadlines, endless meetings. I believed him. After all, I knew how projects could consume your life. I'd had campaigns where I barely left the office myself. So when he came home late, exhausted, tie loose, and eyes bleary, I sympathized. I cooked dinner, I rubbed his shoulders, I told him how proud I was. I didn't realize then that I wasn't supporting a career milestone. I was covering for an affair. At first, everything made sense. He'd text me around 6 p.m. saying he had to stay late. Sometimes he'd send a picture of takeout on his desk, a spreadsheet open in the background. Other nights, he'd roll in after midnight mumbling about deployment issues or client emergencies. The signs were there, but subtle. His phone, once left casually on the counter, was now always in his pocket. His laptop, which he used to leave open, started requiring a password. He claimed the company had new security protocols. Weekends, he'd be too tired to go out, collapsing on the couch with Cooper, ordering pizza, zoning out to Netflix. I thought, wow, he's working so hard, he deserves rest. But my gut, it started to twinge. The first real red flag was a company happy hour. He mentioned it casually, said it wasn't spouses invited, and I didn't push. But later, scrolling through Instagram, I saw a photo a junior employee had tagged from the bar. Alex was in the background, not with his team, but standing close, too close, to a woman I didn't know. She was laughing up at him. His hand was on her arm. When I asked about it, he brushed it off. That's Jenna. She's new. I'm mentoring her. Don't overthink it. I let it go because I wanted to trust him, because I didn't want to be that girlfriend. But once suspicion creeps in, it doesn't leave.
The truth fell into my lap one night when Alex left his laptop open. He was in the shower, and I swear I didn't go looking. I just walked past the screen and saw his email open. There it was, an email from Jenna. The subject line, "Last night, Winky." My hands shook as I clicked. Inside, nothing graphic. Just a thank you for making her feel amazing, a joke about how the project was their perfect cover, and a line that made my stomach lurch. Can't believe we almost got caught at happy hour when she saw us. She, me. I couldn't breathe. I kept scrolling and found weeks of messages. Dinner reservations disguised as late meetings, hotel confirmations tucked between project updates, inside jokes, photos. It was all there. Every excuse, every lie, documented in his inbox. By the time he came out of the shower, towel slung low, humming like always, I was sitting on the bed with the laptop open, tears streaming. His face dropped. He knew instantly. He went straight into defense mode. It's not what it looks like. The oldest line in the book. When I held up the emails, his story shifted. Okay, yes, but it's just physical. It doesn't mean anything. It's stress. It's the project. I almost left. The project. The magical, endless project. I told him it was over, that he needed to pack a bag, that there was nothing left to say. But he begged, said he loved me, said Jenna meant nothing, said he'd quit his job, cut her off, go to therapy. All the desperate words of someone watching his safety net disappear. The truth, I didn't even yell. I was too tired, too broken. I just looked at him and said, "You already threw us away." And then I let him go. The days after were brutal. I had to tell friends, family, coworkers why Alex was suddenly gone. The humiliation burned, knowing his entire office probably whispered about it long before I knew. Jenna's name was a knife. I learned she wasn't new. She'd been there for years. Everyone knew they were close, his mentee, his partner on projects. I was the last to know. I moved out of our apartment within a month, couldn't stand the sight of his things, the smell of his cologne, the indentation of his body in the mattress. Cooper came with me, my one comfort in the wreckage. Alex tried a few times. Emails, flowers, letters slipped under my door, promises of change. But every word felt empty. Because when you've watched someone build a double life right in front of you, trust doesn't grow back. It's been almost a year now. I'm still single, still healing, but I've learned something. Work projects end. Affairs end. Lies end. But the truth always finds its way out. And when it does, you see people for who they really are.